DP23 present day, Honore tilde copyright George Henry Roberts, DS Camille Bawdy introduced, pointing to the photograph to one side of the caseboard. Raised as a Christian on Jamaica, converted to Islam at the age of 16. Moved to Saudi Arabia to study and then to the UK in the 1980s to preach. It was here the first signs of criminal activity. Camille cleared her throat and reached for her water glass, half full. It was parching in the station house, particularly with so many people packed in there. And it had to be her. She was second in command. A broken bar. The chaos of the day before surrounded her for a second, the explosion, the gunfire from the Caribbean Guard. A broken bar. The sight of Richard Poole, himself shot in the chest, cradling the limp body of Charlotte Brooke. A broken bar. Fidel holding out his arm to stop Dwayne running over to Thema. Broken bar. Camille glanced across to the inspector's desk, then caught the eye of the commissioner. Selwyn Patterson gave her a brief nod of reassurance. Roberts appears to have been effective in radicalizing others, including the pushchair bomber Robert Platt, and the brother of Mohammed Tariq, Miles Maloney, who changed his name to Yaqub Tariq, who, as we know, was implicated in the 9.11 terrorist activities, then becoming a suicide bomber in the 2005 July 7th attacks. Commissioners Patterson and Somerton were both aboard, and the former had instructed Camille to arrest those who had not jumped overboard. She had looked into the water. The Caribbean Marines were already picking up those who had thrown themselves overboard and satisfactorily. Noel Svensson was in custody. But Richard was crouched, soaking wet through, with the woman in his arms. She was still alive, and Camille had watched as he had lowered his head and had spoken something near his ear. Camille didn't know which situation she was more shocked by, that she had witnessed the DI jumping fully clothed into the sea, or the tenderness with which he was holding the woman. And what can you tell us about Robert's activity in the Caribbean? Unusually for a spy, Harris Kerr had spoken up, requesting information be shared. Camille nodded to the man, then glanced at her notes. Roberts got 4 years for aggravated assault and burglary, and another 3 for handling firearms. It was while in prison that he became hardened, and came up with the scheme to return to Jamaica and preach to the people in the country, which he did with the help of, she broke off, a coordinator, a leader, whose name I am not going to reveal, but whose pseudonym most people here would know because, before Charlotte Brooke became head of forensics at the Antigua Laboratories, he had this role. His name was Frank Potter. The gasps echoed around the room as the island's police, chief inspectors, Commissioner they had all come to St. Marie in order to hear what Acting Inspector Bawdy had to say. They knew their teams had sent countless samples to Antigua for appraisal, and the customary prompt reports had been countersigned by the man. No, Camille had protested, when Selwyn Patterson had told her commissioner, I can't be the one to take his place. He had placed a hand on her shoulder and paused. A pause at the right time, he had learned, paved some way for the persuadee to have decided to agree to what you were proposing. Half the job was done for you. She had stood there, wrestling with a man in handcuffs as the unsettled tropical sky chose that moment to spit rain. Diana Camille had heard, as she fought with the uncooperative prisoner towards the boat board. Commissioner Somerton had bent his head towards D.I. Poole, and the woman opened her eyes for a brief second. Beside Poole, the bent and disfigured shape of that tin motorcyclist had fallen, the oft-written but seldom witnessed object that stopped a bullet. It hadn't stopped one for here. Camille blinked, and forced herself to focus. I came here to speak about their murder of a tourist, Roberta Weymouth, and who was responsible for her murder. She looked around the room. Roberta was murdered because the woman who replaced Frank Potter had, in her past, chosen the same pseudonym to change her name to, before she was Charlotte Brooke. Camille swallowed again. Selwyn Patterson, however, stopped beside Richard Poole and laid a hand on his shoulder, and the man looked up to the commissioner, his face taut with agony. He was holding the woman's body close to his, as if willing her not to die. A broken bar. Please don't apostrophe T. I can't leave here. A broken bar, not yet. A broken bar. Camille swallowed, knowing her next sentences would condemn the woman Richard Poole so loved. Charlotte Brooke and Roberta Weymouth were both names that a woman called Dinah Seven had chosen to change her own to, by deed poll. Why this was the case, a broken bar, and Camille thought she could have lied, said this change of moniker had nothing to do with international terrorism. A broken bar, but it had. She was so glad Richard was at the mortuary, for he had not left her side since pulling her out of the sea the day before, and could not witness what Camille was about to say next. Is because she owned a cottage in Dorset, and, from a past association, Camille reached for the water again. These had been the words of Commissioner Somerton of Antigua, with Noel Svensson, for whatever reason, allowed her home to be used as an alms cache. A broken bar, for whatever reason. A broken bar. Camille's mind drifted to the envelopes and packages that had mysteriously arrived for D.I. Poole, his forbidding of anyone to go to Antigua. Broken bar. His conspicuous absence when Charlotte had come to bring the laboratory equipment. A broken bar. Despite her name changes, Camille pressed on. She was followed, and Mohammed Tariq, Dr. John Golders had once been, saw Roberta Weymouth was on St. Marie. He did as he was told, and stabbed her in the back. And what about the bodies? A tall man near the back, who Camille recognized to be a DI from Martinique, called out. The missing people? Just so, Camille replied, and it was John Gold, with his connections to Jamaica, who was coordinating this. We, that is to say, all of us, recovered $500 million Caribbean dollars sewn into the body cavities of people who had died. And, if they were not dead and had been sufficiently radicalized, they were employed as ship's hands. An easy job for a young Jamaican man who, if St. Marie is anything to go by, virtually grew up in the sea. Paid very good money for their trouble. Broken bar. She did well, Camille had heard Kerr say as he was just about to climb over the side of the boat and into one of the police boats. Diana. Camille thought that Richard, who had got to his feet and was looking strangely at the man, was about to shake his hand. Instead, after a brief couple of words, kneed the man hard in the stomach. A broken bar. A broken bar. DS board. Organize for a cleanup of the area, forensics, the commissioner had told her. I think a broken bar. The forensics personnel are currently indisposed. Camille couldn't help it. It had been a long night which had now turned into a long day. Without missing a beat, the commissioner looked across at Duane, and Camille realized Richard was not the only person who had loved Charlotte Brooke. Constable Myers, are you involved in this international criminal case? No, sir. Duane brought his face back to look at Selwyn Pattison. Then, forensic analyst Myers, do your duty. The rain was getting heavier, and Richard was still in the middle of the boat holding Charlotte. No, not yet. Not yet. A broken bar. It's time. D.I. Poole. And the commissioner put a hand to his shoulder. I will help you. And Duane did the forensics, and Dinah Seven was prepared to be sent to the UK beside the bodies of the poor, unfortunate souls who were returning to Jamaica. Richard had taken her to the airport, even carried her aboard. I am sorry when I said you had no friends, Camille had told him, late last night. Unusually, Richard was sitting on the sand, ignoring the tide, not caring if it soaked him. She was your, Camille wanted to say wife, friend. Diana. Because Duane and Fidel had told Camille where the deed poll chain went to. Yes. And you loved her. Camille watched Richard's face. Always. And Camille Bordy, Richard Poole's friend, waited as he phoned Diana Poole's parents to tell them of the demise of their daughter.